Rebellious Studio presents the Mind Body Podcast with your host, Maria Angelova. Hey, Rebels, and welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. It is my pleasure today to welcome my guest, Todd Kuckkahn. Did I say that correct, Todd?
Right on, Maria. Very good. Very good.
Yes, nailed it down. So it is so great to have you here, Todd. Todd and I met through a networking event, and we had our one-on-one conversation and hit it off. And I was like, Todd, would you like to join the podcast? And he said a gracious yes. So here he is today. And Todd, we're going to kick it in by you telling people 3 words that describe you and give us a little bit of story behind each word.
I would say the 3 words that pop to mind are trust, enthusiasm, and teamwork. Trust is a really critical part of who I am, and I go the direction I trust people until they prove me wrong. So I trusted you, and you have yet to prove me wrong, Maria. You've been awesome to work with. You've been awesome to work with. You follow through and everything. It's been great. Enthusiasm, hopefully that'll come through in our conversation, but I just love people are enthusiastic, and so much of it is about your attitude that determines the direction you go. It's not it's not external factors. It's about you and your attitude, and I'm very enthusiastic. And the last one is about teamwork. It's really hard to do things on your own. I mean, it'd be hard to do a podcast without a guest sometimes, right? Although I'm sure you have, but teamwork. And I've coached sports, and I also coach people. And I work on a lot of teams and really enjoy that, especially for the accountability part as well. So I would say those are my 3 words.
And you know what? I will pick up on the one in the middle, and that's attitude and enthusiasm, because I think one of the things that grabbed me when we spoke was really your positivity. And actually the reason I did not reach out to everybody that I met at the one event that we connected on, I kind of read people's energy and I'm like, oh, he's got good energy. I want to connect with him. And then I had the same experience when we had our one-on-one conversation, and then when we did our interview. Let's talk about the power of attitude and putting those in the context of what you do, Todd.
Well, so as a speaker, I do a lot of workshops, facilitating, teach, train in the leadership and company culture area. And I think a lot of the challenges that people face in the workforce is that attitude and their enthusiasm or lack of it. I think a lot of challenges that have gone on in the last few years in our lives. And I think so. I heard the term once, intrapreneur. So an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur in the workplace. So you can still be passionate, you can still be enthusiastic, you can still create great ideas and do all those things in the workplace as well as outside the workplace. And again, my feeling is that, you've got 2 choices. You can have a great attitude or a lousy attitude. And I kind of like the great attitude direction, the positive attitude. And you can see how infectious it is. I've done presentations, spoken to large groups too. And I think enthusiasm can rub off easily as well. And that's what I try to do when I work with people, I speak with people, is get that enthusiasm going, get the audience engaged, and let's have some fun, just like we are.
It's so interesting. Yesterday during Mindset Call, the topic was fall in love. And some of the participants came thinking we're going to talk about fall in love with somebody. And it was not about fall in love with somebody, but it was fall in love with whatever it is that you want to do, right? And I think that's where attitude steps in. How you approach anything in life is what you get out of it. So if you go in with like, let's do this is going to work, let's put our solution hats on, it's a very different attitude than, here we go, I have to do this again. And right, the vibe is completely different.
Yeah, and what it's not any fun to be around those people. And again, it's I always say this quote I heard, it's your decisions, not your conditions, that determine your trajectory. So make a decision to have a positive attitude, right? Be enthusiastic. You don't have to be a rah-rah cheerleader, but at least, you walk down the hallway at work, you walk in the grocery store, you're out for a walk in your neighborhood, smile, say hi. I mean, just simple things like that. And I think it's something that really can be very contagious.
So glad you brought the word choice, because I think we make a choice, whether it's a conscious or an unconscious choice, we choose what our attitude is. And I'll tell you a funny story. My daughter and my husband, sometimes they do the eye roll when mom is really friendly, right, and talkative to people. They're like, here goes mom again. But I'm always like, hi, how are you doing? How's your day? And I love connecting with new people, and I think it brightens people's day when you go in with an attitude like that.
Well, sometimes, yeah, sometimes because I'm down in the lower level of our home, and sometimes my family will say, "Man, what was going on down there? It was so loud, and you're laughing and screaming." I'm like, "Well, it just like to have fun, right? Making that choice to have fun and try to build people up."
Yeah. And speaking of fun and speaking of choices, you have made some big choices in the past couple of years that have taken you on the world on entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit about that and what made you take the leap of faith to make that big move.
Sure. Well, about 6 years ago, I got involved with the John Maxwell team, and really had some good lessons through a variety of events and books and activities, and decided I really wanted to go down this leadership path as part of my journey. My more than my career, right? More than my job, more than my career, really my calling. And as I got more and more engaged in leadership and doing trainings and speaking workshops and things, I noticed on my calendar with my full-time job that a lot of my vacation time was being eaten up in a good way by the things I was really passionate about and enjoyed doing. So about 2 years ago, actually, I talked to the board of directors. I was running a nonprofit, a chamber of commerce, and I met with the president and vice president. I said, "Hey, here's where I'm at." I said, I'd love to still work for you, but I need to go to like a 75% contract. And they decided that wasn't right for them. And that's fine. Totally respect that decision. But I just had this passion for leadership. And they actually made that comment. They said, "Todd, we can tell that you really enjoy it." And I was trying to bring that into the business council as well. So November of 21, you got to do the math now since we're new in 23, but November 21, I left my full-time position, actually one of the best jobs I ever had, and left that and decided to go full-time into my business and entrepreneurship. And it's been about 16 months now. And this sounds strange, right? But I'm excited to do my taxes. The only reason is I want to see how I did last year. I mean, I really didn't keep track during the course of the year. I just kind of did my stuff and moved on. So, but I had a friend ask me a really interesting question. He said, "Whose dream do you want to live? Your dream or somebody else's?" And it's okay to live either one. But my choice at that time was really to live my dream. I have 4 daughters. They're all grown. One's working on her master's degree, so they're in good shape. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, as I'm getting closer to 100 than 0, I need to do it now and make that jump. And I'm so excited that I did. I never would have had the chance to talk to you, Maria.
There we go. Life brings people into your life when you take different paths.
That's right. Absolutely.
This morning, I walked into the studio and it's a beautiful day down here in Atlanta. It is sunny and the sun was actually, for a change, the rain and the groggy and the cold, the sun was coming in, and I walked in. I thought to myself, I feel so grateful for the opportunity to be here and to do what I love to do. And I thought the exact same thing. It's funny that you bring this up, that I get the opportunity to build something that's my own and to contribute to the world in the way I want to. And I think from the place of an entrepreneur, that is such a powerful place to be.
And as you well know, Marie, it's not all puppy dogs and butterflies either, right? There's obviously challenging moments. There's failures, but out of failures we get to learn. We have successes, and of course we get to meet a lot of new people. I'm starting 2 nights a week for the next 8 weeks. I'm going to be teaching a group of entrepreneurs actually through the university, and I love doing that because I can just, you can just see in their eyes their enthusiasm and energy, and that's what it's done for me. And really, I can live out something that I'm in my heart, I'm really passionate about. I love impacting people. I love adding value to people, and this is the best way for me to do it. And it just feels so right now.
Yeah. And Todd, you brushed up on the words such as fear of failures and the not so pinkish days. And I think that's also very important to talk about, because it's easy to see success and it's easy to see when things are going great. It's not so easy to see what takes you to those bright moments, right?
So well, yeah, as a basketball coach, we spent a lot of time watching the players on film. At that time, we called it film. Now they're looking on DVDs and whatever else. But it was easier to coach the team after a loss, because after a win, they didn't do anything wrong, right? Because they won the game. But after a loss, they knew they did some things wrong and need some improvement. I think that's kind of in my entrepreneurial business too. The best lessons for me have come when I've had a challenge or a failure or a loss, and where I really had to think through about, okay, now what am I going to do the next time to make sure that doesn't happen? So somebody said you should try to have 20 failures a week, because if you have 20 failures, you're going to have an unbelievable number of successes. So try to seek out those failures, really get out of your comfort zone, push through that fear and make things happen. And sometimes it pushes back, sometimes it knocks us down, but we get right back up and keep fighting again because we know we're headed in the right direction.
I do have to say, Todd, is when I started, and I don't know if you felt that way, I thought people were going to line up and sign up for my services and it's all going to be rocking and rolling. And that not happening is actually pushed me onto my growth journey to kind of discover what my underlying limiting beliefs were, where there were opportunities for growth, and to take the action steps outside the comfort zone to be where I am today. So exactly to your point, it's the learning moments are when things are not so bright and sparkly, but when it's a little bit gloomy out there.
And as you mentioned, reaching out to others too. I just read a post before we got on, actually, from John Maxwell, talking about when he first started out. He was a leader and a speaker, and we know that now, but he was just starting out. And he said he did not surround himself with the right people who could help him and lift him up. And an entrepreneur, it can be a pretty lonely life, but you have to find that group of people, that inner circle of people that can hold you accountable, that can coach you, that can encourage you and help you get through those tough moments, and also help you celebrate those successes you have as well.
So well said. I coach that to my clients, that the tribe is one of the most key things on your growth path. You have to surround yourself with the right people. The people who believe in you, the people who are cheer you even when it's not bright, the people who are like, you can do this. And also people who can relate to your experience, because sometimes it's unrelatable to people who have not been on your path.
And I think the other aspect too of all that, Maria, is, you look at what we went through with shifting everything to remote, right? People working from home. And I think there's obviously some good to that. I mean, you and I are on this call, probably wouldn't have thought about it 3 years ago, but there's also some challenges of that. And that's the interaction and the growth, and walking by somebody in your office, walking by the water fountain or bubbler, depending upon which part of the world you're from, and just having a conversation there, and the connectedness that we have in the workplace. And again, people lifting people up. We have that failure in the workplace, or you have the failure as an entrepreneur. You need people to reach out to and lean on.
Absolutely, completely agree. Because you know what? There are no failures. There's just lessons. There is just lessons asking us for redirection, change direction, do something a little bit differently. And I think to your point is, I was talking to another client actually in another episode, and we spoke that, I don't know if you have heard this saying, when one door closes, another opens. But the foyer is a bitch. Have you heard that?
I didn't hear the last part before. I heard the first part, but not the last. That's good.
And I love that last part because it is so true, right?
That's very true.
Until the door opens, but it's really in the foyer where that growth happens, where you're like, okay, what do I need to do differently? And it's uncomfortable in the foyer. But as my guest and client said, I'll tell you what's even worse. He's like going back through the same door again.
Yeah. Going backwards. That's exactly right.
Right.
I was doing a training a year or so ago, and the HR director called me after one of the sessions, and we had been into it a little bit nearing the end. And she said, Todd, that session just didn't hit. I got a couple of emails from people. So obviously, if that's your job, your livelihood to do that, it hits you kind of hard. But so I leaned on my core values, and we talked and met with her team, her training team, went through some changes, tweaked it, came back, went really well. Matter of fact, she even apologized to me after it was all over for doing that. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I should probably apologize to you. But through that, just again, leaning on her team, leaning on my core values really helped me get through that failure. And now I learned a great deal from that.
That's an excellent point, Todd, because just a few days ago, I think I even did a short live on that sometimes we don't say the truth as it is. We zigzag around it because it doesn't feel comfortable. We don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. Long term, I don't think that serves anybody well. Like if she in that example, she had not come to you and said, hey, we really didn't enjoy this because 1, 2, 3, these are the places to improve on. They might have never called you back, right? And that would have been a burned bridge versus hopefully now you have a great relationship with them and you can keep working with them.
Absolutely. I love the good feedback, but I love all the feedback from people. But yeah, how am I going to get better if I don't know where I'm, doing well, or where I can tweak myself? And again, talking about that inner circle of people, I've had some people in that inner circle give me some fairly harsh, realities, some harsh suggestions, but
Mhm.
so helpful. And sometimes you don't realize it because you're in the picture and they're outside the picture and can see you and see how you're acting or speaking or talking or training. And they can see sometimes it's just little things you need to tweak, but it's so beneficial and it's going to help everybody in the long run.
Absolutely. So I agree. I believe in the power of being authentic with what you think and sharing that. So important. And speaking about that, in the role that you're in, what do you suggest to people who are dealing that with the workplace, maybe not receiving the feedback that they're expecting based on their performance, or even people being let go, right? Being fired is not viewed as a positive thing, where, I think you can look at it as, well, you're not the right fit. Now is an opportunity for you to find a better fit. But what kind of advice do you give to people, especially in the workplace, who are dealing with negative?
Well,
And
I
I
think
say negative because I think it's subjective, right?
it's all about communication, and that, it sounds simple, it sounds easy. I've got this poster behind me that has 9 different tenets of good communication. I use it all the time when I'm training, but you really have to reach out to your supervisor, reach out to your peers, find people that you can have conversations with, and just be sincere and honest. I want to improve. I know I could be doing better. What are some things I can work on? Really help me. Or if you know some things, tell people, hey, you know what? I had this habit of doing this. Can you watch out for this? Make people aware of it. And I think that authenticity really plays well in the workplace. And I think particularly with the younger generations, where people are having more trouble attracting and retaining the younger generations, that's especially true, because their research shows that they're looking for meaningful engagement. The only way that can happen is by great communication, effective communication. And it takes more than talking. You have to really sit down and be willing to share. I work with another gentleman on this leadership academy, and we get about between 15 and 30 people on a Zoom call. And it's amazing the things that they share about their personal lives, their professional lives, and not negative complaining and whining, but things that are challenges for them. And by the end of the 9-week session, they've really turned around, and the openness, and you mentioned, Maria, authenticity, vulnerability, all those different things they relate to trust really can come out, but you have to have those meaningful conversations.
Yeah, and I think all great words mentioned. I think it's so important to have a trusting relationship, going back to the word trust that you mentioned, Todd, with your colleagues, your manager, your supervisors, whoever those people at work are, to feel safe, to be vulnerable. And because sometimes it's scary to admit to, this is a weakness of mine, because people get in their head, what if I get fired? What if I get replaced, or whatever else happens, right? The insecurities come up, the doubts come up, versus thinking this is something that will help me, but it will also contribute to the team. So changing the perspective of how that's viewed.
One of the questions that I use in my trainings is, it's a series of 3, but the third question is, talk about a difficult or challenging moment in your childhood. Now, that can be a pretty intense question. And it's like, well, what does that have to do with the workplace? Well, if people understand, again, who you are. One gentleman was talking about when he was younger, how he was bullied. And through taking a DISC assessment, he understands that the D style in DISC assessment, it's very driven and dominant. They're not bullying him. It's the style that they are. They're just more assertive, maybe even a little aggressive sometimes. But he understood their style. And by communicating the fact he was bullied, and by understanding the rest of his team, you could just see the ice melt in the room and the shoulders relax, people better understanding each other. And I've had some people come to tears talking about some of their childhood things. And that's not easy to do in a group of your peers. But it just really elevated the connection and the trust with that team and with that group. Again, not everybody's comfortable doing that, and nobody should be forced to share those sorts of things, but they will come out, particularly as you continually go down that road and create a comfortable area for people to talk about things like that.
Yeah, I think that is so important, because when somebody tells me I don't like so and so, I say, learn their story, go for a cup of coffee with them, learn their story, and then see what you think. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. We all have different stories who have contributed to who we are today. So understanding the person and their view of the world, because we all view the world differently, it is so key to better communication, to better trust, to better relationships, to more authentic relationships as well.
This sounds so trite, but there are 8 billion different people in the world, and every one of us is different. You could line up all 8 billion people. And the sad thing is we often judge people on what we see, I always say, above the iceberg, the part that's out of the water, and we make our judgments on that. And if we would only take the time to find out about the 90% of people that are below the water, or who they really are, it just changes that whole thing. And it's like you say, Maria, it's all about that personality and really understanding who those people are and why they are. And you know what? We've all come in the office, had a bad day. Maybe our dog didn't go to the bathroom, or took it for a walk in the morning, or we had a fight with somebody, or our goldfish didn't eat right, or whatever the case might be. We have those moments. We bring in baggage sometime, but let's communicate about it rather than punishing somebody who's already down. Hey, how's it going today? What's going on? And if they don't want to share, that's fine, but at least offer that opportunity to share, communicate, and continue to work on building that trust.
And to that, the one thing that pops to mind, Todd, is, I don't know if you have read the book, The 4 Agreements. I am a huge fan of that book. And one of the 4 agreements is do not take things personally. So if somebody were to snap at you, it doesn't have to be about you, right? Maybe, like you said, they had a really crappy start of the day, and it's all about where they are in space, and it has nothing to do with you. So I think if both people take things personally, it can get messy emotionally. But if we take, okay, that's not about me, give them a little bit of space, greet them with a smile, that can totally change the dynamic of the relationship for the day.
It made me think about my daughters who are all in sports. And sometimes they come home with their tails between their legs after practice, what happened. And the coach yelled at them. And I said, well, you know what? Don't listen to how the coach is saying it to you. Listen to what the coach is saying, because he or she is trying to help you improve. And sometimes we don't deliver our messages in the best way. Just like what you're saying is get through the how of it and listen to what they're saying and what you need to change on. And then when the conversation de-escalates, then maybe go deeper into it with that person. But I think people's intentions usually are very good, but we all have those moments, and we just need to remember who the person is and focus on what they're saying, not necessarily how they're saying it.
I tell my daughter the same thing when she says, this teacher is hard, Mom, she doesn't like me. I said, well, maybe you need to think that she really likes you and she really believes in you, and she's pushing you because she knows you can do better, right? So it's the same thing in the workplace. Maybe your boss is pushing you because they see potential in you.
Boy, that's a great way to look at it. Absolutely.
Right. All right. So speaking of authenticity and being different, I have to ask you, what's your definition of rebellious, Todd?
Well, I'd like to think I was a little rebellious when I left my comfortable full-time job that I really enjoyed and took the jump into the entrepreneurial world. Different kind of rebellious. Sometimes you think about rebellion in a negative way, but I think we have to be a little bit rebellious and take those challenges and push our comfort zone out if we're ever going to grow and change. Sometimes rebellion can be really simple. Sometimes it can be much bigger, like a career type change that I went through. But I think rebellion is a good, as long as it's used in a positive way, right?
It's so interesting that so many people bring the positive and the negative, because rebellion can sometimes be viewed as negative. So everybody puts that disclaimer, but you know what? I'm a rebellious girl. So I see all the positive in it, and I'm all for following your heart and doing what feels right to you.
That's right.
All right, Todd, let's wrap it up with one piece of advice, favorite quote that you want to leave with our listeners.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that really ties in well with what we've been talking about. It's about who you are, not what you are, not how many letters you have after your name or where you are in the food chain. It's really about who you are and how you relate to people and how you care for them. You can care for people in the workplace. Obviously, you can care for people in your personal life and organizations you belong to, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Really great quote. Todd, where can people find you if they would like to follow you?
I am, I have a website. Use my first name, last name. My email address is todd@toddkuckkahn.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. I love connecting with people, and I'm not going to try to sell anything. Maybe not right away, but I love to have conversations and just, talk to people. I've had so many great relationships developing out of that. Well, just like you and I, right? Yeah. We had a happenstance casual meeting. We had another conversation, and now here we are, and who knows what's next. So connect with people, connect with me if you want to.
Yes, it's awesome to create authentic connections with rebellious souls. That's why.
There we go.
So find Rebellious, whatever is suitable for you. And thank you for following Rebels. Make it a rebellious day, and we'll see you next time. Can't get enough of those rebellious conversations? Do make sure you subscribe, like, and share with your friends.